Hi everyone, welcome to another video. Today is all about Japanese azaleas. In this video I want to give you loads of information about Japanese azaleas, and I will also show you how to plant them. So first let me show you the ones we have here. Those are azaleas we got recently to add to our azaleas that we already have in the garden. Now Japanese azaleas are of course a must-have for every Japanese style garden, but look beautiful in any type of garden setting really. Azaleas are evergreen shrubs and there are many different cultivars, and here you can see an example of the different colors of the blossoms, ranging from pink to purple, white, and you also find red ones, but we do not grow any red ones. So there are thousands of different cultivars of azaleas, and you can see on those, comparing them, the shape of the leaves and the color of the leaves. You see here they have light green leaves, this is like a darker green, and here we have an even darker green color. And these, for example, have quite large leaves compared to those, for example, or also compared to those. So what you choose is really personal preference, depending on which leaf color you're looking for, which blossom color you're looking for, or which type of blossom. For example, these, they have simple blossoms, so it's just one petal here. The other ones, those for example, and the white ones, here you can see it, I'll go over there, they have filled blossoms. So you see they have a couple of petal layers here. Okay, so let me just show you again in comparison the different types of leaf shapes and colors. Let's film a close-up here so you see if I hold them here next to each other. This one has quite large leaves actually, and a darker green compared to this one here. This is even darker but smaller leaves, and comparing it to those here, you see they have like a bit of a lighter green, and especially the new ones coming out are very light color, and you see the leaf shape and size compared to the other two. So it's really, there are loads of different varieties in regards to the leaves and the blossoms. Now, how do azaleas grow? So most of the cultivars grow in this bushy type of shape. You can see here they rather have thinner branches. If you look in there, the azaleas tend to grow out from old wood. That's a perfect example. In here you see the new growth coming out here from the older branches at the bottom. They do this quite a lot actually, and they grow just outwards, and over time they will rather grow wider than tall. And these bushy type of cultivars, they typically grow to maybe about 60 to 90 centimeters, that's between 2 and 3 feet, but not a lot more. However, there are also other cultivars that grow rather up. So those can grow up to 2 meters, that's about 7 feet even. In our garden we only have the bushy type of azaleas, so the ones that grow rather low. So these are all Japanese azaleas. Now I also want to show you another kind, which we are very excited about. These here are Satsuki azaleas. Now Satsuki azaleas are also Japanese azaleas, but they are a cultivar group within the Japanese azaleas. And we are really excited to have those, because that's the first time we found Satsuki azaleas in a nursery here. And these azaleas are typically used for bonsai, and that's because they have very small leaves. Again, comparing it to the other leaves of the other cultivars, you see how small the leaves are. The type we have here, the cultivar, is Korin, and this cultivar has very pointy, narrow leaves, as you can see, in like a dark green to like a light green, depending on how new the growth is. So also the Satsuki azaleas, they have this growing habit of growing in a bushy shape, but they're also cultivars that grow more upright. This one here, the Korin, is a dwarf cultivar, so it grows maybe to about 30 centimeters or a foot, maybe a bit more. We'll see how it develops here in our garden. This always depends also on your local climate and the growing conditions. And it is supposed to bloom in pink, but because the plants are so young, I'm not sure if they will be blooming this year. Now, other than the leaf shape, what's the real difference between Satsuki and the other Japanese azaleas? Basically, Satsuki refers to or means later in the year, so later in the calendar year. That means these Satsuki azaleas, they bloom later, and the blooming time is usually May to June, whereas the other Japanese azaleas, they bloom between April and May time. So that's the only main difference really of this cultivar group of Satsuki azaleas, that they're blooming later. So what we're going to do now is we will start planting these azaleas, and we have different areas in our garden with different colored azaleas. So we usually in our garden do not mix the colors. We have areas with just purple, and we're going to get started with those two, where we're adding those two. Then we will do the pink ones, and then also the white ones at the end, and the Satsuki ones most likely, depending on whether we have a rain forecast. So we'll see how far we get today. Before I start planting, I want to show you the roots of the azaleas. So you can see here on this root ball that they have very, very fine roots and very dense roots. So Japanese azaleas root in a shallow kind of way, so the roots will not go a lot deeper than this, maybe a little bit, but not much. And they do need an acidic soil, so that's very important for Japanese azaleas. They will not be happy in a normal pH range soil, so anything above 6.5 or 6 is not good for the azaleas. We in our garden have a pH of 5, which is perfect for the Japanese azaleas, but still I'm planting them in azalea or rhododendron soil. This should be available pretty much everywhere in the world, really specifically for Japanese azaleas or rhododendron or any acidic loving plants. Because we have an acidic soil anyway, what I usually do is I mix the soil we have with the new rhododendron soil, and this makes it look like that. You can see here, this is a mix, and this gives a really nice light soil for the azaleas. I use organic soil for planting, and also soil that is peat free, because peat I find becomes very clumpy and hard when it gets dry, and that's especially for Japanese azaleas not very good. And the soil should also be well draining and nutrient rich, and that's perfect to plant them in. Now we're on to the pink blooming azaleas. All the ones you can see here are different cultivars, and they all bloom in pink, about to come out. And I will be placing those 4 here to fill in the area a little bit. And this is where I want to tell you about the location in the garden for azaleas. So before we do that, let's place them. I would say one goes here, put it there for now so it doesn't tip. Then second one for here, to grow even a little bit into the pathway to make it look more natural. It's nice. They also, if you see here, go well with rocks, actually, Japanese azaleas. And then we have those 2, and they are gonna be going here on the other end. One here and one here. Right, okay, before I plant them, a word to the location. So you can see those here. This is a Michiko cultivar, and we had loads of those all the way along the pathway here some years ago. But because this is very shaded out, they actually didn't grow properly. So these few here, forward is, are the remaining ones that we put them in the sunny location here. And they are doing okay so far. We'll see how they will develop over the next years. They do not have a lot of leaves, so they've never been entirely happy in their original position. And this is one thing that I find interesting from my experience, because on most of the plant tags, for example, you can read that azaleas should be grown in shade or partial shade. And I actually make the opposite experience. So the azaleas that grow in our plot here in full sun, they are doing perfectly well. They are full of blossoms every year. And the ones that grow in shade are not doing well at all. So I'm not planting azaleas in shade anymore. Of course, it depends on the cultivar. It depends on your local climate. But from my experience, planting them in full sun or in partial shade is the best position. Now, the sun can also be too hot for azaleas, so be careful with that. But normally, they develop quite nicely in sunny positions and will be, like you see here, like this. Hopefully they will look like that next year, full of blossoms. Now, let's get planting. So when I plant Japanese azaleas, especially because they have these fine roots, I usually put this root ball in a bucket with water first for a few minutes, and I show that also in other planting videos. This time I'm not doing it because we had so much rain recently that this root ball is completely wet, and also the soil is very wet and we're expecting more rain. So I'm not doing it now, but normally when it's dry weather or the root ball is dry, I really recommend soaking it in a bucket of water. Now, once you've dug your hole, put some soil at the bottom just to cover up the original soil. And then I usually put in a little bit more soil around the sides before I place the plant. If your soil is really far away from an acidic pH, I'd maybe even dig a bigger hole to fill in with acidic planting soil. But for us, this size is fine. Then I place the plant and check if the position fits. That looks nice. Okay. And then I push the soil on the side down first, or around, to make sure there is no hole in there, because that can lead to rotting roots. We don't want that. And then I'll fill in the rest bit by bit. I prefer doing this by hand actually, and not with a shovel for smaller size plants like this azalea, because then you get a better feel for how much soil is already in there and where it's compact enough and where it still needs filling. But that's all personal preference, of course. Next we're on to the Satsuki azaleas, and we will be planting them on this little mound here. We'll see how many we actually need to cover it. And before I do that, let me just tell you about the hardiness zones. So generally speaking, all Japanese azaleas are safe to grow in hardiness zones 6 to 7, and that's the USDA hardiness zones for your reference. Many cultivars grow even from zones 5 to 9, so it depends where you live, and what your local nurseries provide is typically a good indicator of what grows in your area. Next, let me place these azaleas and space them out a little bit. Now we have placed all the azaleas, and the picture we want to achieve here is that they all grow together over time and build one full area of azaleas. And now let's plant them in the ground. And what I always wanted to do, it worked! Fantastic, I always wanted to try that. Okay, so last I want to let you know about watering requirements. So azaleas do have to be kept moist. That doesn't mean they have to be soaked or really very wet all the time, but the soil should not dry out, because they do not do very well in dry conditions. So make sure they always have plenty of water, especially during the summer months. For the white azaleas, we just put them all here for now. Rain is coming any minute, so we'll have to plant them another time. And that brings us to the end of our video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give us a like if you did. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.